What's up, guys? How's it going? It's Matt here. So I'm gonna apologize real quick. It's kind of windy out here, but I figured I'd take you guys outside for a little bit to do a video instead of my annoying back wall that you guys always complain about, that little nail over my head. So we're gonna talk about something today. So we're gonna talk about bleeding power versus stopping power. Now, before you guys start going on and say, oh great, Matt's on another one of his 9mm 45 round, blah blah blah. This is not going to be about various caliber makes and models and modern day firearms and stuff like this. I'm specifically talking about a little bit about the history of sidearms in the military. I'm going to be talking about the difference between bleeding power and stopping power. There's a big difference, and a lot of people can't seem to separate the two. They all consider the same thing, the one thing, and there's a lot of people out there that'll even say there's no such thing as stopping power. It's kind of a myth out there. In truth, there is a such thing as stopping power. The only difference is they can't seem to separate bleeding power from stopping power. Now, what is bleeding power? Bleeding power is creating a hole inside a body and forcing it to bleed, and that person will go into shock, lose blood pressure, and drop. That's what bleeding power is. Just about any single caliber out there, even down to a .22, can cause someone to bleed to death. Bleeding power will absolutely, totally put them to the end, stop them dead, okay? Bleeding power is that. But when it comes to bleeding power versus stopping power, there's a big difference between the two. Now, I say people can't separate this because it's true, they can't really separate this. They get stuck on this whole thing that bleeding power and stopping power is the same thing, and there's no such thing as stopping power. That's just not the case. If you look at the back of the history, back in the 1800s, late 1800s, what the American military was using, they was using a .44 caliber, and they was also using 45 Colt and a .44 caliber. What they did prior to World War I, they switched over to 38 long, okay, 38 long. I don't know if it's the same thing as special, but they called it 38 long. So they switched over to 38 long, and there was a war actually before World War I. The American military were actually using these revolvers, these 38 long revolvers. So what happened is they came to an issue. Their rifles at the time were actually going down. It happens, especially rifles go down pretty quickly. So what would happen is rifle would go down, so they needed a sidearm that they could go to and stop someone so they could get their gun back in the fight. At the time, they had the 38 long revolvers that they were using. So their rifle would go down, they'd go to their pistol within spitting distance, I mean literally between me and the camera, within spitting distance, that's what a sidearm is for a pistol. They'd go to the pistol and they'd shoot them, and they'd shoot them, and they'd shoot them, and they'd shoot them. And as they were shooting them, the people would be fatally injured, they would be bleeding to death, the bleeding power effect was coming in, but those people that they shot could still kill them because they weren't taken out of the fight yet. There was no stopping power, there was only bleeding power in the specific caliber that they were using. So what happened, the military decided, okay, we needed to go back to 45. So they went over to the 1911, which is a 45 caliber, 45 ACP. They went over to the 45, and it basically answered the question for them, it answered the call to them. If their rifle went down in a fight, they could simply go to their pistol. World War I in the trenches, it happened a lot. Mud, dirt, all that other stuff gets into the pistol. They were living in trenches non-stop all the time. Their rifles went through hell. If their rifle would go down and they're up close in person within spitting distance, within bayonet distance, they could pull their 45, their 1911, they could shoot them in the chest, and they could take him out of the fight. And it's proven it does work. If you hit them 1 to 2 times in the chest with a big slow projectile, it will stop them. It will take them out of the fight so they can get their rifle back up and get into the fight. Now, a lot of people now, and today, all the arguments that people have when it comes to calibers and stuff like that, like, I'm trying to break the brainwashing, guys. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to break the brainwashing. The argument they always have is ballistics gel, the diameter to the size of the diameter. And they say that the size of the diameter doesn't matter because at the end, they're going to bleed to death anyway, so what difference does it make? What difference does it make? There's a big difference that it makes. Ballistics gel is not an accurate test. Clint Smith says it best. Basically, what he says is never in his life has he ever been attacked by ballistics gel. He says what terminal ballistics is you shoot them and you shoot them and you keep hitting them and shooting them until you take them out of the fight. That's what terminal ballistics is. Gelatin, all that other stuff, you can just throw it out the door. Gelatin doesn't have flesh, doesn't have bones, doesn't have clothing, doesn't have all the other stuff, all the organs, the GUIs, the tissues, the membranes, and all the other stuff that ammo has to go through, so you don't get a very accurate test. Yes, you get a test for the size of the diameter, and they take measurements of the size of the diameter of the round that goes in, the size of the actual internal what do you call it, the internal damage. They take that measurement and they say it basically back to back, all calibers are pretty much the same. What they don't usually record is the one important thing, the stopping factor, not the bleeding factor, the stopping power, because they can't record the stopping factor in ballistics gel. What the stopping power is, there is a such thing as stopping power compared to bleeding power. Stopping power is the ability to put so much force onto the target and that it creates a massive pressure on the inside that it takes them out of the fight quicker, knocks them to the ground. There's two effects that comes in. There's a hydrostatic shock effect and the shock effect. When they get hit by that heavier round, a lot of people say the diameter doesn't matter, what difference does it make? The difference is hitting them with 300 pounds of pressure to 600 pounds of pressure. What happens is when you impact, they get impacted with a bigger round, there's more of a shock factor, there's more of a pressure factor inside the body, and it actually takes them out of the fight quicker. Hence, takes them out of the fight quicker. I didn't say bleed them quicker. I didn't say make them bleed quicker. I said it takes them out of the fight quicker. You could hit someone with a 22 and you could cause them to bleed to death. That's the bleeding effect, the bleeding power, not the just about every single modern day argument always goes to the same thing. It's the diameter. You know, they say a little bit of a change in diameter will not do a difference, will not make a change, will not change the outcome of the fight, which is true. Technically, the diameter will not change the outcome of the fight. They'll have a hole, they'll still bleed the same with whatever the diameter is. The only difference is, like I said, and this is the last time I'm going to say it, is the slightly bigger the diameter, the heavier the bullet, the more force goes into that bullet on impact, which causes more pressure on the internal body and causes more force on impact, which takes them out of the fight quicker. It doesn't bleed them to death, it takes them out of the fight. There is a difference between bleeding power and stopping power. Anyway guys, I hope you like this video. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about me, and remember guys, it's our responsibility to take care of each other and protect each other.